Yeah, hello everybody. So here to give a little bit of an industry flavor to the presentation. So primarily what I'm going to cover is from early stage R&D, how you take a probiotic and scale it up into large scale manufacturing. So I'm going to go into, why probiotic scale up matters, some of the technical barriers we have both on the upstream side and the downstream side, and then just go over some of the regulatory challenges and finally conclude with some case studies we have. So why probiotic scale ups matter? The current market of probiotics is valued at about $100 billion this year. And projected to reach $400 billion by some reports by 2035, mostly driven by gut health awareness, digestive disorders, and the functional food industry. In addition to that, what was used to be the wild, wild west 20 years ago with probiotics has become largely a very regulated industry today with multiple clinically approved probiotics. So there's a lot more regulatory compliance that comes with that. And of course, the economic viability. So it's absolutely essential that all stakeholders make money along this path, and that can only happen if the cost of goods is maintained. So these are the key drivers to why it's important to have scale up done properly. Yeah, the technical barriers we see in fermentation. So at a small scale, at a 5-liter bioreactor, it's quite easy to achieve what you want. But when you scale that up, going up to hundreds of KLs, what you tend to see is not all of that translates as well. Primarily mixing inefficiencies, thermal gradients. You can imagine when you're operating with a 5-liter tank, it's very easy to get consistent heat flow and mass flow. But if you're going to scale that up into a 100 KL reactor, you're going to have challenges. Similar sort of situation you have with pH control and oxygen heterogeneity. Where your probe is in the tank, where you're feeding your pH feed from, and similarly where on the oxygen side as well. So all of this plays a significant barrier in trying to scale up a probiotic technology successfully. Yeah, what we see is media selection and cost optimization is absolutely critical in this role. Cost-effective raw materials. So what you pick at small scale at a 5-liter reactor may be lab-grade reagents, but if you're going to scale up, you're not going to find that to be very cost-effective. So very often you have to use agricultural feedstock. So let's say soya flour. Now, when you're using agricultural feedstock, it has far less control than you would have for your lab-grade reagents. So maintaining that across when you're scaling up is absolutely important. Sterilization optimization. So when we see at a 5-liter reactor, you're able to very consistently maintain sterile conditions, but the same thing cannot be said for large scale manufacture. And on the downstream side, so that was covering the upstream challenges you have, and on the downstream side, you have similar challenges where you see that centrifugation is a unit operation typically that you will do post upstream fermentation to reduce broth volume before you go in for drying. So your centrifugation step viability can significantly reduce, especially due to long centrifugation time. So typically what you would do is you would use a clarifier of some kind which can handle, let's say, if you're doing a 10 KL batch, 2,500 liter per hour clarification volumes. Now that's a 4-hour operation, versus in a lab in a batch-based centrifuge, you'll be able to do that in 15, 20 minutes. So that time difference between a lab scale and the commercial scale can have significant impact on the viability of the cells themselves. And ensuring that you don't have that 30, 40% loss across the scale is what the name of the game is. Cryoprotectant strategy. So using the right kind of cryoprotectant to basically shield your probiotic from the stresses that it may have during scale up is absolutely important. And then advanced packaging options. So typically, what we see is one of the biggest impediments to probiotic stability at scale is moisture content. So it's absolutely important that post making of your large scale probiotics, you limit moisture as much as possible. And you can do that through various packaging technologies. You can vacuum pack your probiotics. You can add different cryoprotectants to ensure that there is no moisture added on. And you can significantly lower the amount of moisture in the our raw materials that you will be using before you add them in. Yeah, a typical flow of how it would go from lab scale up to demonstration scale. So you start with small scale flasks, benchtop fermenters. How we like to scale up probiotics is we say a rule of thumb that we use is a 10 times scale up in upstream fermentation volume is typically manageable. So if we say we go with a 5 liter at our R&D scale, it's safe to take it up to a 50 liter as the next phase. So we want to run a minimum of 3 batches in that. Typically between 5 and 50, what we see is there's not a lot of variability. We're able to scale that up quite linearly across that. But it's the next scale, the 500 liter, 10 times that is where we routinely see challenges. And from then on, going up to the next 5 KL and then the 50,000 liter scale. So taking it from that lab to demonstration scale is this is the typical process flow that we would follow. And then finally taking it up to your commercial scale manufacturer that you want to be operating at. So this is a picture of a 100 KL vessel. So you can only see the top of it, but of course goes down 4 floors. Quite a large fermentation tank. You've got to ensure that you maintain, at scale, what you don't want to have is lost batches. Because there's a significant commercial impact to that. So, and then we go over the regulatory framework and global requirements that you have. So currently, there are multiple probiotics which are clinically approved as drugs. The US FDA has approved some of them. We also have EFSA, which is the European equivalent. FSSAI in India, of course, is the Indian regulator. So meeting the GMP requirements of a probiotic is a little different from you would in a drug. But this is essential now that it has become a far more regulated environment than it used to be. And before I go into the detailed case studies on, scale up, this is basically a conclusion. So essential to have viability of your probiotic, cost-effective media. Yeah, so this is the interesting bit. So actually 2 case studies which go over the issues that we faced that during a scale up. So this particular case is for a Bacillus subspecies. So it's a spore forming probiotic. As you can see at 5 liter scale, we were easily able to achieve 99% sporulation. Similar results were seen at 50 liter. Slightly less, but still significant amount of sporulation, meeting our product specification. But when we took it up to 500 liter, I don't know how clear it is on the presentation there, but you can see that the sporulation is far less. And in addition to that, there's still a large amount of vegetative cells which are in the endofermentation broth. So to tackle this, we had to come up with different strategies on seeing how we could take it from 5 liter up to the 500 liter successfully before going up to further scale up. Because at this point, if we did jump up into the next scale, as you can imagine, you would have significant costs associated with it and you wouldn't be achieving your target product specification. So the 3 things that we were able to analyze and figure out were root causes of this lack of sporulation. There was the pH of the media. So yeah, there were 3 basic root causes. One was the pH of the media, the impeller type and the agitation speed of the impeller, and then aeration itself. So as you can see here, at the 5 liter scale and at 50 liter scale, we use what's called purified water. So this is 2-pass RO water. Now the average pH of that is around 6.8 to 7 pH. Now, at 500 liter scale and at even larger volumes, it becomes harder and harder to use 2-pass RO. So for that reason, we switched to something called processed water. Now, processed water has a different pH range. So average pH range around 5.8 to 5.5 to 5.8. Now, you wouldn't think that would have such a significant impact on probiotic manufacture, but as we were able to clearly see that post fixing that, what we did is after sterilization, we adjusted the pH using NaOH and ammonia to about a range of 6.8 to 6.7. And then we took it up from 40 to 50% to 60 to 70% of sporulation. And you can see that in the pictures. But we weren't still at the target 99% that we were able to achieve at small scale. So this wasn't the only root cause. The next change we made was impeller type and dimension. So as you can see, at a 5 liter, there were 2 Ruston turbines, and you typically operated at 1,000 RPM to have proper dissolved oxygen maintained. 50 liters, since there are more turbines, you have to reduce that RPM value. At 500 liter, we again reduced it, but we still weren't able to see, even post the change in pH, the target 90%. So by further reducing the pH, by further reducing the RPM to 450, though counterintuitive, because you wouldn't imagine that you'd think that you want to maintain some amount of oxygenation in the broth volume to have increased viability. But what we see is that the high RPM causes so much shear at scale on the probiotics that it causes the vegetative cells to go into cell lysis. And therefore, by preventing the shear is more critical to the cells at the log phase. And so we reduced the RPM, and then we were able to see that there was significantly increased sporulation. And finally, the DO percentage. So typically when you take a vegetative cell and to make it go into sporulation, you have to put it under a stress condition. And this is just unique to spore-forming probiotics. So how we do that is either nutrient starving or by reduction of dissolved oxygen. So at lab scales, just naturally, the probiotics, you can see that they would go into spore forming, but this isn't the scale. This isn't the case at the 500-liter scale. So at this point, we were forced to reduce the DO to not less than 10% at EOF, at end of fermentation. And when we did that change, then we were able to finally see our target 99% sporulation at 3 kL. So typically, when you take a probiotic up, there are a lot of challenges that you will face like this. Another case study of an anaerobic probiotic. So there was a Bacillus subspecies. This is a Lactobacillus anaerobic probiotic that we saw. As you can see pictures at the 5 liter in a glass fermenter, end of fermentation produced very nice short rods, exactly what the target specification is. When we scaled up to 50 liters, similar short rods were observed. But at 500-liter demonstration scale, when we attempted to do that, you can see cell morphology is completely changed and you have long rods, which is not what our target specification is. Also, if you observe our media, I have pictures there of the before inoculation media. At 500-liter, you can see extremely dark media. And so after we did a little bit of root cause, what we were able to figure out is that the reason for this happening is twofold. One is that at a small scale, when you're working with a 5-liter bioreactor, you're able to put the whole bioreactor into the autoclave it for a period. It's 121 degrees for 45 minutes, and then take it out and immediately start your reaction. Once you start working with larger volumes, what tends to happen is the sterilization time significantly increases. So just to take your fermenter up to the target 121 degrees is a 20-minute process. You then have to hold at 45 degrees and then another 30 minutes for cool down, because you can only inoculate when you're at 37 degrees centigrade. So basically that takes a full 2 hours as opposed to 40 minutes. So in that 2 hours, there is significant amount of charring of the media that occurs. Due to this, you have loss of nutrients and a change in morphology. And then in addition to that, what we see is the darkening of the media happens due to something called a Maillard reaction. If you're taking a carbon and a nitrogen source and working at them, making them basically putting them up to high temperature together, you get complete charring of the media, hence change in morphology. So when we fix both those problems, we were able to achieve our target specification. So long story short, there is a lot of nuance to scaling up probiotics. And we have a lot of experience doing this. So yeah, thank you so much.